The final whistle blew at the Hill Dickinson Stadium on Saturday, March 21st, 2026. The scoreboard read Everton 3, Chelsea 0, and for a brief moment, nobody on the Chelsea bench moved. Not the coaching staff, not the substitutes, nobody. The silence said everything that the numbers could not. Liam Rosenior stood on the touchline. He had arrived at this club promising stability. He had promised a clear identity. He had promised results. And instead, what he delivered on this particular evening was Chelsea's fourth consecutive defeat across all competitions, something this football club had not experienced since 1993. Let that sit for a moment. 1993, a completely different era of football, a different world. And yet here we are watching Chelsea repeat that painful chapter in their history. This was not just a bad result. This was a warning signal. A loud, unmistakable alarm going off inside Stamford Bridge's corridors of power, even though the game was played miles away in Merseyside. If you want deeper analysis on moments like this, the kind of football analysis that goes beyond the surface and truly breaks down what is happening inside a club, hit that subscribe button right now, because what is happening at Chelsea right now is one of the most fascinating and troubling stories in English football this season. And we are going to break it down completely. Before we go deeper, understand what was at stake on Saturday evening. Chelsea came into this game needing points. Liverpool had dropped points earlier in the weekend. That was a gift, a genuine opportunity to close the gap on the Champions League places and send a message to the rest of the top half of the table. Instead, Chelsea wasted that opportunity completely. Not only did they fail to win, they failed to score. Again, Chelsea have now failed to score in 3 successive games across all competitions. That is the first time that has happened at this football club since September 2023. The consequence of this defeat is severe. Chelsea now sit just 2 points above Everton in the table. The very team that just humiliated them, the very team that finished this game playing with far more confidence, far more aggression and far more desire than the visiting side. Champions League football next season is still possible. Rosenior himself acknowledged after the game that Chelsea are just 1 point away from a Champions League spot. But the way this team is playing right now, that comfort should offer nobody inside this club any real reassurance. If you are a Chelsea supporter watching this right now, subscribe, because we are going to go through every layer of this crisis, piece by piece, fact by fact, without hype and without excuses. Let us begin with the match itself, because the numbers from Everton versus Chelsea tell a very uncomfortable story. Everton scored 3 goals, Chelsea scored 0. That much is obvious. But look closer at the statistics from this game. Everton had 9 shots on target compared to Chelsea's 4. Everton had 10 shots in total, while Chelsea managed 12. So Chelsea were not completely absent from the game in terms of attempting to create. But the big chances tell the real story. Everton created 1 big chance. Chelsea created 2, and yet Chelsea scored none. Now here is where the analysis becomes painful for Chelsea supporters. Chelsea had more possession, 63.8% of the ball against Everton's 36.2%, more touches in the opposition box, 31 for Chelsea against Everton's 27, more corners, 9 corners for Chelsea against Everton's 3. On paper, Chelsea dominated large portions of this match statistically, and yet they lost 3-0. That is not just bad finishing, that is a systemic problem. A team that cannot convert dominance into goals and a team that concedes cheap goals at the other end. That combination is toxic. And right now, it is the reality at Chelsea Football Club. My own reading of these numbers is straightforward. Chelsea are creating the moments but lacking the clinical edge. And defensively, they are gifting opponents exactly the foothold they need to punish them. Rosenior himself addressed the sloppiness directly after the game. He said, and I want to be precise here, yes, 100%. Responsibility and accountability are with me. He acknowledged the team played in a 4-4-2 shape and that he felt comfortable in the game. But the scoreline said 3-0. If that is what comfort looks like, then Chelsea have a very serious problem with their definition of progress. My analysis here is simple. A manager who feels comfortable in a game his team loses 3-0 is either misreading what he is seeing or he is protecting his players publicly. Either way, that statement will not sit well with Chelsea's board or their supporters. Now, let us talk about the goalkeeper situation, because it cannot be avoided. Robert Sanchez was at fault for at least 1 goal and arguably 2 during this defeat. The XG on target data, which measures the probability of a goalkeeper saving a shot based on its position and trajectory, confirmed that one of the goals Sanchez conceded was a shot that a goalkeeper would be expected to save 86% of the time. 86%, that means on 9 out of 10 occasions, a professional goalkeeper at the highest level saves that shot comfortably. Sanchez did not save it. This is not an isolated incident. This is part of a pattern. Under Rosenior, across 19 Premier League games, Chelsea have conceded 31 goals. Their only clean sheet in the league came over 2 months ago. And since beating Brentford 2-0 on January 17th, Chelsea have gone 9 consecutive Premier League games without keeping a clean sheet. 9 games, no clean sheet, 31 goals conceded under Rosenior management across league games alone. The defensive situation at Chelsea is genuinely alarming, and the goalkeeper is a significant part of that problem. Now, let us move to Everton's contribution to this result, because credit must be given where it is due. Beto was the man of the match. He scored 2 goals and provided 1 assist. Alan Shearer, speaking on Match of the Day after the game, was clear in his assessment. He said Everton were the only team that wanted to win from the first whistle to the last. He said Beto gave Chelsea's 2 centre-backs a terrible evening, pressing aggressively, being physical, being difficult to deal with. Those 2 centre-backs were Jarell Hatto and Wesley Fofana. Both were criticised heavily, and Iliman Ndiaye added the 3rd goal to complete a commanding home victory for Everton. Everton are now up to 7th place in the Premier League table. They are just 3 points off 5th place, and critically, they are only 2 points behind Chelsea, who sit in 6th. The Toffees are playing with confidence, energy and belief. Chelsea are playing with confusion, mistakes and mounting anxiety. The contrast between these 2 clubs right now is stark. This was the first time Everton had scored 3 goals against Chelsea in a Premier League game since December 2019, when the scoreline was 3-1. That tells you how rare this kind of Everton performance against Chelsea used to be. Right now, it does not feel rare at all. Let us now look at the broader context of this losing run, because 4 defeats in a row means more than just bad form. Chelsea lost 5-2 to Paris Saint-Germain in the first leg of their Champions League tie. They lost 0-1 to Newcastle United. They lost 0-3 to Paris Saint-Germain in the second leg, which means they were eliminated from the Champions League on an 8-2 aggregate scoreline. And now they have lost 3-0 to Everton in the Premier League. Chelsea are now out of the Champions League, and their Premier League form has collapsed at exactly the wrong moment. For the first time since 1995, Chelsea have lost consecutive games by a 3-goal margin. First, the 0-3 defeat to Paris Saint-Germain, and then the 3-0 reverse to Everton. That statistic alone illustrates how badly things have deteriorated. For the first time since 1993, Chelsea have lost 4 games in a row across all competitions. These are not small milestones. These are historic low points for a club that has spent the majority of the past 2 decades competing for the biggest prizes in European football. Rosenior spoke at length after the match, and his words deserve careful examination because they reveal a lot about where this manager's head is right now. On the goals conceded, he said Chelsea are gifting goals away. He described 2 poor goals in the early stages when the team started edgily. He said the first 10 to 15 minutes involved cheap giveaways. He acknowledged that gifting goals gives the opposition energy and lifts the crowd against Chelsea, and he admitted this has been happening too often recently. He said Everton deserved the victory, and he said this is something Chelsea need to improve very, very quickly. On the lack of scoring, Rosenior said Chelsea are arriving and creating chances. He said the problem is not a lack of shots or final third entries. He said the team needs to be more clinical on effort and belief. He was clear that he does not think the players are lacking effort or belief. He said those accusations naturally fly when a team is on a losing run, but he does not believe that is the root cause of Chelsea's current problems. On the physical workload facing his squad, Rosenior acknowledged that the heavy schedule following the Club World Cup and the sheer volume of games has been very noticeable. He said the upcoming international break will come at a great time for the players to rest and recover. He was careful to say he did not want to be seen making excuses, but the implication was clear. My analysis of Rosenior's post-match comments is this. He is a manager who is saying the right words publicly. He is taking responsibility. He is acknowledging the problems, but the gap between what he is saying and what is actually happening on the pitch is growing with every passing game. And that gap is what makes his position increasingly difficult to defend. He pointed to fatigue, he pointed to cheap goals, he pointed to clinical finishing. But all 3 of those problems have existed for weeks now, and there is no visible sign of improvement. A manager who has identified the problems but cannot solve them is in a very dangerous position at a club like Chelsea. Now let us talk about the players, because the story inside the dressing room is becoming impossible to ignore. Cole Palmer was a frustrated figure throughout this match. On one occasion, a cutback came to the edge of the box and Palmer gestured to his teammate to leave the ball for him. Pedro Neto instead took the shot himself. Palmer then spent 20 seconds waving his arms and complaining at Neto. Before this game, the statistics around Palmer away from London were genuinely exciting. In his last 2 league games played outside of London, he had scored 4 goals. In his previous 24 such games, he had scored just 3. There was genuine anticipation that he could deliver again at Everton. He did not score. He did not get the service he wanted. And the visible frustration between him and a teammate tells a story about the communication and understanding inside this Chelsea squad right now. When your most talented player is spending 20 seconds arguing with a teammate during a game, your club is losing. Something is broken. Liam Delap also spoke earlier in the week, and his words were notable for their honesty. He said Chelsea have not deserved some of the results they have gotten, but that the key is finding a way to win regardless. He acknowledged that winning championships and competitions requires being at your best all the time. He understood the challenge. He spoke like a player who is genuinely trying to understand what is going wrong, but understanding a problem and solving it are 2 very different things. Esteval Willian returned to action in this game after more than a month out with a hamstring injury. He was 18 years old, playing in an environment of crisis, pressure and dysfunction. By multiple accounts, he was Chelsea's brightest spark on the pitch despite the chaos around him. But the moment that stood out most came at the final whistle. Esteval was the last Chelsea player to leave the pitch. He gave a supporter in the away end his shirt, and then as he walked away, he kicked the turf in visible frustration. That single image captures something deeply significant. This is a teenager who has just returned from injury and is already feeling the weight of this club's dysfunction. The evidence suggests that even the most optimistic and energetic member of this squad is starting to feel the pressure and the disappointment. Senior players are questioning things openly. Enzo Fernandez, speaking 2 days before this defeat on March 20th, opened up about the departure of Enzo Maresca from the club. He said he does not understand the decision. He said Maresca gave the team order and a clear identity in training and in matches. He said Maresca's departure hurt the club, especially coming mid-season, because it cut everything short. Those are powerful words from a senior player, and they raise a very serious question. If the players were still processing and coming to terms with losing Maresca before this game, what does that mean for the confidence and cohesion of this squad right now? The wider football community has taken notice of Chelsea's collapse, and the commentary has been harsh but largely fair. Pat Nevin, the former Chelsea player, was direct in his BBC assessment. He said Everton deserved everything they got and fought in every area of the game in a way that showed up Chelsea completely. He then asked 3 questions that he left deliberately open. Are Chelsea's players buying into the manager? Are they exhausted after the season they have had? Or were they simply beaten on the day? The fact that Pat Nevin, a man with genuine affection for Chelsea Football Club, is publicly asking whether the players are buying into the manager is significant. That is not a throwaway comment. That is a serious question from someone who watches this game closely. The reality for Liam Rosenior is that the new manager bounce he enjoyed when he first took charge has completely worn off. When he started, Chelsea lost just 2 of his first 12 games, which included 8 victories. That is a strong beginning by any measure. But since then, the team has suffered 4 straight defeats in all competitions and the momentum has vanished entirely. Let us now address the structural and boardroom dimension of this crisis, because results on the pitch are only part of the picture. There are growing calls from Chelsea supporters for Rosenior to be sacked immediately. Some supporters have pointed to the fact that under Enzo Maresca, this same squad recorded dominant victories over Paris Saint-Germain 3-0 and FC Barcelona 3-0. Under Rosenior, the same squad has just been beaten 3-0 by Everton and eliminated by Paris Saint-Germain on an 8-2 aggregate. The comparison is devastating. There is a significant complication regarding any potential dismissal. Rosenior recently signed a long-term contract running until 2032 with an option for an additional year. Dismissing him would come at considerable financial cost to a club that has already spent enormous sums on its playing squad. The expectation from within the club remains that Rosenior qualifies Chelsea for the Champions League through a top 5 Premier League finish. That is still mathematically possible. Rosenior is just 1 point away from a Champions League spot as things stand. But if that target is missed, the consequences for Chelsea's ability to attract top players in the summer window would be severe. One commentator on the situation made the point very bluntly. Chelsea risk not being able to attract key summer signings if they fail to qualify for the Champions League. The summer transfer strategy, the squad rebuild, the entire direction of the club could be altered dramatically by whether Chelsea finish inside the top 5 or outside it. Some voices have gone even further. One pundit argued that Rosenior's contract is irrelevant to the question of whether he should continue, drawing a parallel to the case of Lewis Hall, who was given a contract and then sold to Newcastle United. The argument was made that Chelsea can and should move Rosenior on regardless of contractual obligations if the situation demands it. And then there is the Maresca dimension, which adds another fascinating layer to this story. Just 2 months after being dismissed by Chelsea, Enzo Maresca has been linked with a return to football management. Fiorentina, the Italian Serie A club, have reportedly reached out to Maresca regarding their vacant managerial position. Fiorentina are currently sitting in 16th place in Serie A, though they still have ambitions in the UEFA Europa Conference League, a tournament that Maresca knows particularly well, having won it with Chelsea last season. This is only a rumour at this stage. It is important to be precise about that. No deal has been agreed, no announcement has been made. But the fact that Maresca is already being linked with a new role just 2 months after leaving Chelsea adds an ironic and uncomfortable dimension to the situation at Stamford Bridge. The players still speak warmly about the identity and clarity Maresca brought to the club. The supporters are comparing Rosenior's results unfavourably to what Maresca achieved with the same squad. And now Maresca may be about to walk into management again, potentially proving his quality elsewhere, while Chelsea deal with the consequences of letting him go. There is also a wider accusation about the club's decision-making that has been circulating consistently throughout this difficult period. When Maresca was in charge, he publicly identified the need for an experienced central defender as early as August 2025. He said clearly that the club needed a central defender following Colwell's injury and that the club was looking internally rather than signing one. He was essentially overruled. The club chose not to bring in the player the manager was requesting. The argument being made now, particularly among Chelsea's supporter community, is that the coaching staff are consistently being placed in impossible situations. When results go wrong, the manager takes the blame. But the decisions that created the conditions for failure, including squad-building choices, were made above the manager's level. Nobody in the boardroom or the sporting director position is being held accountable. Chelsea's chief executive and their sporting directors, Paul Winstanley and Lawrence Stewart, have overseen significant investment in this squad. Yet the structural weaknesses, particularly in central defence, have persisted and continue to cost the team at crucial moments. Alan Shearer was specific on this point. He highlighted the performances of João Hato and Wesley Fofana as a terrible evening in central defence. Both players were exposed repeatedly by Beto. The evidence suggests Chelsea have a central defensive problem that goes beyond personnel. It is a structural issue that has not been properly addressed. As we reach the end of this analysis, let me bring the full picture together clearly. Chelsea are in their worst run of form since 1993, having lost 4 consecutive games across all competitions. They have not scored in 3 straight matches, the first time that has happened since September 2023. They have conceded 31 goals in 19 league games under Rosenior and have gone 9 Premier League games without a clean sheet. Their goalkeeper has made costly errors. Their centre-backs have had terrible evenings. Their most talented player is visibly frustrated and arguing with teammates during matches. Their senior players are still processing the psychological impact of losing their previous manager mid-season. Their 18-year-old new arrival is kicking the turf at full time in disappointment. Rosenior is taking public responsibility, but his answers about fatigue, cheap goals and clinical finishing have not translated into solutions on the pitch. Champions League qualification is still possible. 1 point separates Chelsea from that target, but the team they just lost to, Everton, are only 2 points behind them. And Everton are playing with the kind of hunger and confidence that Chelsea are currently missing entirely. The situation is this: Chelsea are a club with enormous financial resources, an exciting young squad on paper, and yet they find themselves in a genuine crisis of identity, confidence and direction. The decisions that led to this point were made at multiple levels of the club, on the pitch, on the training ground and in the boardroom. The international break arrives at what Rosenior himself called a great time. Players will rest, tensions may ease slightly, but the fundamental problems will not disappear during 2 weeks away from competitive football. They will still be there when the league resumes, and Chelsea will need answers quickly. That is the full analysis for today's video on Maya on Chelsea. Every fact you heard in this breakdown comes directly from what has been confirmed around this story. No exaggeration, no assumptions, just the full picture. If this kind of detailed and honest football analysis is what you want from a channel, please subscribe right now and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. We cover Chelsea with the depth and seriousness this club deserves, whether the news is good or difficult. The next weeks will be defining for Liam Rosenior and for Chelsea Football Club. And we will be here to break down every development as it happens. Thank you for watching Maya on Chelsea. Stay informed, stay sharp, and we will see you in the next video.